Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. I really hope this setup is working really well because I have linked my phone to my MacBook Pro, so I have the photo booth out so I can see where I am. Finally, like I can see what the camera is seeing, and I hope that the audio is also a lot better. I have my computer in front of me and my notes, so if I look down and look away from the camera, that's why. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me here today. And this video is going to be a little bit different. Now, if you're new to the channel, hi, welcome. I've been writing off and on over the past 2 years, more on about film and TV for about 9 years or so. I did have one blog that was called NoOvernightGuests, which is the name of my YouTube channel now, and I had it for a few years, and I was kind of experimenting with writing movie reviews and my style of writing, and eventually I reached a point where I wasn't sure if I could keep up with it, so I closed it and then reopened it on WordPress, a different platform than the one I was using, and it was up there and it was doing really well. It was like slow growth there, but again, I reached a point where I needed to make a change with it, so I decided to launch a blog through Squarespace. So now my blog is called Eating Film, and it's on the Squarespace platform, which is very different from WordPress. I say all that to say, I've been writing about movies a long time. I've been watching movies a lot longer. I have opinions, and I'd like to share them with you all. So if you guys want to take a look at my blog, I'll have it linked in the description below. If you guys have any questions, please let me know, and let me know what you think about these movies. Guys. So first I wanted to start out with The Darkest Minds. This came out several years ago, and I remember it was around the same time where a lot of movies like that were coming out, the dystopian future, teen protagonists, not the end of the world, but like a dramatic world shift, and their survival is threatened for some reason, you know, like the Maze Runner series and the Divergent series, you know, were, I think they were still going on at this time. So The Darkest Minds is about a phenomena that only affects children of a certain age, that either causes their death or causes them to develop different abilities. And there are 4 different categories. Green, extremely increased intellect. Like their intelligence is like they're Einstein level smart. Then the yellows, they can move things with their minds. The oranges, which can manipulate people into doing things or believing things. And the reds, which are like fire starters, they can project fire. So apparently there were millions of deaths during that time where children just, their bodies, they just died. The reasoning, like the biological reasoning behind that happening, they don't go into that. They don't go into, I assume this is based on a young adult novel of the same name, but because I feel like there's so much information we don't know that I feel like it's in a book somewhere. But I think this just happened once. And have you all seen that movie Children of Men, where the population was starting to get so low because less and less women were, I think, carrying children to term, and there like hadn't been a new child born in like 18 years or something like that before the catalyst happens. Anyway, that's a very different movie. But thinking about that, the consequences of there being millions of children that died from this, and then millions of others that are affected in this way. And I assume this is global and not only what's happening in America, which is where everything seems to center. It caused like a complete sort of breakdown in common sense. So apparently the government kind of took over control of this because it was unprecedented. So them, in combination with factions of the military, it's their job to keep the affected ones that have these abilities in these sort of camps. And they are kept there, I guess, for the foreseeable future. What happens to them when they become adults, we don't know. We don't know if they're allowed to leave at all. We only know that they go in, and we follow our character who, I think she was about 6 years old, and then it's like 10 years later, so she's like 16. So much I don't understand. So there were a lot of keys to the story that I sort of picked up right away. I mean, clearly it's a movie for young teenagers, because a lot of it I was like, this just doesn't make any sense. Like, the storyline just kind of have these like really brutal moments, but they weren't totally carried through. Like, the concept wasn't completely carried through. Like, one of the oranges, who is telepathic, got on the bus when she was like a little kid. She realized very early that she had one of the gifts, but didn't know anything about any of this. It sort of happened by accident. When she's taken to the camp and they're taken off of the bus, there's another kid who is hit by one of the other guards, I guess. And I guess that's what they are, guards. And he forces her to kill herself. And then they shoot him and kill him. And this is supposed to be like very early on, maybe a couple years in. I was not confused by their behavior or his behavior because he's a kid, but it just seemed in so many ways like unrealistic. It was like, first of all, if you force this person to kill themselves, how do you think that you're going to get out of it? Like, there are so many guards surrounding, because they haven't been sorted yet, so they don't know what kind of gift they have. So they are surrounded by guards. Like, I don't know what the whole point of that whole scene was, other than to like enforce that this is like a brutal way of living and that they're not being treated as children, they're being treated as enemies. So I was like, okay. Because I knew, like, from watching the trailer, they had worked in a whole love story in there, whole coming of age story. But what is the point? Like, even in the Maze Runner series, there is a point. Like, they've been dropped their science experiments. Here, it's just like, okay, so we're going to move them all here. We're going to have them wear all these different colors. The colors thing was so annoying to me. The greens, the orange, the yellows, the reds. She appeals to one of the doctors who helps her escape, who says that they are part of a vigilante group who are trying to free kids from these camps. In this world especially, that seems to have undergone extreme hardship in some areas, there are certain parts of the city that are like totally abandoned. We don't know what the response was from parents during this time when, you send your kid off to school and then they don't come back and you find out that they've been struck down by some kind of mysterious disease or infection. We don't know anything about that. We don't know anything about what happened afterwards, if there was some kind of like revolt with the parents being like, you're not telling us everything. We don't know. So she escapes with this person who claims to be a friend and is trying to help her escape and be free. And to what end? I sort of figured that out. I was like, there's no other reason. I mean, what are you going to do with a bunch of teenagers and children? And especially if there is nowhere for them to go. Like, that was the thing that got my attention, is like, we don't know what's happening in the rest of the world, so where are they going to go? she decides not to trust this person. She finds other kids that are on the run. And I'm like, okay, sure. So they're all on the run. They stop at a motel. And people see them. I'm like, first of all, did y'all rent this room in this hotel? I think they did. Or did y'all just like break into this room at this motel? Because people can see you. And if there are no children that are unaffected by this thing, then y'all should not be there. That's the thing. Just by them being there, like in public, walking around, that's not a thing that's happening. There are no children. Every child has been affected by this, I'm assuming, based on the story. So the fact that they thought that they could be in public at all was a little unbelievable to me, because they're not stupid, they're just very young. And if all the children have been corralled into these places or died, then how is it that they think that they can just drive down the road, be in public? The fact that there are bounty hunters for them was over the top. It wasn't necessary. It's not necessary to have bounty hunters hunting for children because they're children. And especially since we're talking about the kids that are in a mostly what used to be an urban area, they have no concept of what they would need to do to survive in the wilderness without the help of other adults. So while it's possible that they may survive, it's just not, running the numbers, it's not necessary to have them. So I was like, okay, villains. Like, we have pure villains here where that's the bad guy. The son, him giving that statement on the radio over and over again, I knew that was fake. I was like, the fact that people still assume that that's like a real thing was like oddball to me, because the message, he says the exact same phrase over and over again. Nah. And I just didn't believe it. The whole, like, them using their powers was what I was interested in seeing. I just didn't learn enough about them to care about them until we got, like, way closer towards the end. When it comes to children in these types of situations, you can't assume that they're going to act rationally or with good common sense, especially when they're in these like urgent kill or be killed situations. But they're not dumb, and they do a lot of dumb stuff in this movie. It has to be for the sake of the storyline to keep the story going forward, because it just dragged on and on. Like, her going back to see her parents, that whole scene was irrelevant. She already knew that if she walked up to the front door and like said hello, that they wouldn't know who she was, because she had erased their memories by accident when she was a child. So that was really, it was totally irrelevant at that point. Everybody has parents. Everybody who's living and there had a parent that they were taken away from. So the Lost Boys group of kids, I was like, sure, there'd have to be some out here. What was interesting to me was that you have the Greens are highly intelligent, not just like a little bit. They're highly intelligent. And in the camps, they had them lacing up boots, like working in a sweatshop. I was like, it's such a mimics like the manual labor camp aspect, as though they were at war and needed to have like bullets made or guns assembled, stuff like that. I'm like, this is totally unnecessary. What is this for? If not just to keep them occupied, but they could be putting that brain power to much better use, especially since it's been like 10 years. I was annoyed through most of the movie. I was annoyed by the ending conclusion because I knew it was going to happen. That would be the most dramatic and wrenching way to end the film is if she, because it was so specific, like the memories thing, her and the leader of the free group of kids, the fact that it wasn't all in chaos and people weren't just doing whatever they want to do, and it's a bunch of teenagers and it's a bunch of children. I was like, I knew something was up. Duh. It would be so easy to diffuse fights, make people feel like they're doing the right thing, in order to keep the peace, to keep it going. So that was very obvious to me, but I'm an adult and not the target audience for this movie. But I was still annoyed. So the fact that he met her, like the leader of their group met her, and he's an orange too, sign number one. He very specifically wanted to know how she had removed the memories and wanted to like her to walk him through this whole process. I knew she would have to do it again because it took so long and involved so many different scenes and stuff. I was like, of course they're gonna do this again. And then the ending with her rubbing that orange chalk on her with the hand, stadium full of kids, and I was like, how did the government not see this? There's an entire stadium, a stadium that you would see for like a major football game, not like a elementary school stadium. Nah, way bigger than that. Not see all of these children just standing here, and then her being at the front. What is the point of this? I guess because she's the only orange and they kill the oranges because they pose the most threat, that they want to single her out and make it seem like if we could find her and keep her safe and protect her when she is like the most vulnerable, her type is the most vulnerable type, then it kind of like reinforces their whole idea. But they're absolutely building an army and infrastructure for these kids to revolt. Sure, okay, but I just couldn't get into it. This reminds me of the Golden Compass, where y'all had all of these great ideas and these like really interesting details and really interesting scenes, and then you leave us high and dry. So that's what I thought about The Darkest Minds. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I enjoyed making it. I love talking about movies. I could talk about movies all day, every day. I have so many opinions. You know, I watch movies from America, movies that are in, you know, Finnish and French and Spanish and Italian. I watch classic movies in black and white, art house films, indie films. I feel like now I've sort of cultivated a wider appetite for film, and you know, I write about it all the time on my blog, Eating Film, but I haven't really, I think I have one movie review up on the channel about the New Mutants, but that was like years ago now, and I really enjoyed making that video. And when I started thinking about what I want to do for the next year and how I want to incorporate my interests like interior design and showing you guys sort of what my style is and more of the behind the scenes about my business, Hey Red Shop, movies are a big part of that. I find them so inspiring, and I can, you know, especially when it comes to design and interior design in my home and things that I look for the shop, movies can be a great inspiration for that. So I hope you guys are going to enjoy this sort of shift in focus. I know that I've been kind of all over the place with my channel, experimenting and doing different kinds of things to just sort of find my groove. I hope you guys have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I'll see you next time.